Welcome to the first lecture of German for engineers and engineering students. In this course, we will use a simple but effective methodology to learn German grammar. Our methodology is called the grammatical and structural analysis of sample sentences. Let's get started. Our first sentence in German. Ingenieure sind wissenschaftlich ausgebildete Fachleute, die auf technischem Gebiet arbeiten. As you see, this is a very simple definition of the word engineer. In this lecture and the following 2 or 3 lectures, I want to discuss about 3 different and important grammatical topics. First of all, word formation or Wortbildung in German. Second, present and past participle. In German we call Partizip I und Partizip II. And third topic, relative clause. As we say in German, Relativsatz. Let's talk about some Wortschatz und Wortbildung, which is vocabulary and word formation. The most basic word, der Ingenieur, engineer, and the female form of this word is die Ingenieurin. As I told earlier, Wissenschaft with the article die means science, and the suffix lich comes together with this word and makes an adjective or an adverb from names. Whether it's an adjective or adverb depends on the context, but the point is how suffixes are used to make adjectives from names. So let's have a closer look at the frequently used suffixes to make adjectives from nouns. Die Technik, technisch. Die Technologie, technologisch. Der Effekt, effektiv. Das Rätsel, rätselhaft. By the way, let me explain the latest word. Das Rätsel means puzzle or mystery or enigma. And rätselhaft is obviously puzzling, enigmatic, or mysterious. Here is another list of most frequently used suffixes to make adjectives from nouns. Die Politik, politisch. Die Ökologie, ökologisch. Der Geist, geistig. Die Kreativität, kreativ. Die Innovation, innovativ. Das Wesen, wesentlich. Der Fortschritt, fortschrittlich. Die Verantwortung, verantwortlich. Let me have a look at the list of the words you may not know. The Politik is obvious. I don't need to translate it into English. Ökologie, ecology. Der Geist is spirit, like in team spirit. Kreativität is obvious, creativity. Innovation, obvious. Das Wesen means the essence, the core. Wesentlich means the essential, the most important part or something. Der Fortschritt means progress or advance. So our adjective fortschrittlich means progressive or advanced, depending on the context, but mostly progressive. Die Verantwortung means responsibility, and the adjective form verantwortlich means responsible. So, let's continue with this word formation and new words. Or if you say it in German, Wortschatz und Wortbildung. I think you can remember these words from our sample sentence in the very beginning. Das Fach means subject of expertise or profession. Die Leute means people. So, these two words, das Fach and die Leute, come together, make a compound, make a connected word, and we have die Fachleute. And the Fachleute means experts, professionals, specialists. Here is a very important rule. If two or more words form a compound, the last word in the compound determines the gender and the plural form of the compound noun. As we have seen in our example, the article of Fach is das, and the article of Leute is die. According to our rule, the article of our final word, Fachleute, bears the article of the last word, die Fachleute. I think that's enough for the first lecture. Now please go on with the second lecture. There we will discuss about present and past participle, or Partizip I und Partizip II. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank. In this lecture, we will talk about present and past participle, or if you say it in German, Partizip I und Partizip II. Let's get started. Participle is an adjective formed from a verb. In German grammar, there are two different types of participles. The first one, Partizip I, or with its more theoretical, more grammatical name, Partizip Präsens, is something very similar to the gerund in English. And Partizip II, or Partizip Perfect, exactly the same thing as the past participle in English. Here is a very important grammar rule in German. Partizip I und Partizip II, both of them are used with Deklination, Adjektivdeklination oder Adjektivendung. Here is a general formula how to make Partizip I und Partizip II. In order to make Partizip I, we take the infinitive form of a verb and then add a letter D at the end of the verb and then necessary Adjektivendung, which comes from declination. Okay, in order to make Partizip Perfect or the Partizip II, we take the Partizip Perfect form of the verb and then just add the necessary Adjektivendung. We can use Partizip I as an attributive adjective and always with an adjective ending, always with declination. For instance, let's take the verb schwimmen, which means to swim. We take a D and we have schwimmend. Together, we have das schwimmende Mädchen. The participle schwimmend comes directly between the article das and the noun Mädchen. Das schwimmende Mädchen. Here is an important detail because das is a definite article. If we say the swimming girl, We are talking about a specific known girl. Because of we use das definite article, we have a E in red color I showed you here at the end of the schwimmen. This letter E comes from declination and because we used definite article das. If we use, however, an indefinite article, ein, if we talk about any girl in general, then we have to say ein schwimmendes Mädchen. The article das comes in the form of s at the end of schwimmen instead of e on the above sentence. Another sample sentence to discuss Partizip I. Sich verändernde Bedingungen hindern die Produktion. Die Bedingung means condition. And the verb sich verändern means to change. Now you may ask, what is the difference between sich verändern and only verändern? Okay, verändern means change something, to change something. Sich verändern, change happens to itself, happens at the subject. The subject is affected by the change. In order to make Partizip I from this verb, from the verb sich verändern, we take the infinitive form, verändern, add a letter D and an extra letter E, which comes from the article of the word Bedingung. And then finally we have sich verändernde Bedingungen. Let's see another example. Der überwiegende Anteil an Innovationen kommt aus den USA. Let's look at the specific single words. Überwiegend, adjective, and it means predominant. Der Anteil is share, like in market share. In order to make Partizip I, so as you see, there is a difference here between definite article and indefinite article. If I am talking about a definite and specific share, then I must use der Anteil. If I'm talking about any share in general, then I can say ein Anteil. So in the definite form, the verb überwiegend, die and i. In the other form, however, ein überwiegender Anteil. This final er comes from the article der Anteil. Let's have a closer look at the Partizip II. We can use it as an attributive adjective, very similar to the Partizip I, and an extra field, extra usage area for Partizip II is the passive voice. As you may remember, the Partizip II is formed from the past participle, the past perfect form of the verb. Very similar to English, the German verbs also have weak verbs and strong verbs. For instance, if we have the verb öffnen, which means to open, the past perfect form of this verb is geöffnet. If we have a strong verb, however, then the root of the verb also changes. For instance, stehlen means to steal. The past perfect form of this verb is gestohlen. Let's look at some good and simple sample sentences to have a better understanding of Partizip II. Eine veränderte Struktur kann den Entwurf verbessern. Der Entwurf means design. Do you remember the rule how to make Partizip II? The red color E at the veränderte comes from the article of Struktur. Because it is die Struktur, I add an extra E. And as you see, it is used with ein, with indefinite article. Let's look at another sample sentence. Eine erleichterte Verarbeitung spart Kosten. Our verb is erleichtern, which means make something easy or to ease, to unburden, to relieve. We take past perfect form erleichtert and then add a letter E because of the indefinite article and the original article D of the word Verarbeitung. Do you remember our original sentence from the first lecture? Here I took a very simplified, very short version of this sentence just to show you the Partizip II in our original sentence. Ingenieure sind ausgebildete Fachleute. As you see, verb here is ausbilden, to train someone or to educate someone. We take ausgebildet, add an extra E, which comes from the article die of Fachleute, and finally we end up with having ausgebildete Fachleute. I think this is enough for the second lecture. Now please go on with the lecture number 3. There we will talk about relative clauses, Relativsätze. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank. In this lecture, we will learn a very important topic, Relativsatz or relative clauses. Let's get started. Relative clauses are usually, but not always, located right after the nouns to which they refer. Sometimes they can also refer to a whole sentence. In German grammar, a relative clause can start with 3 different things. First, it can be a relative pronoun or a combination of a preposition and a relative pronoun, or a little bit complicated version, it can be a relative adverb. If a relative clause starts with a relative adverb, then it refers to a whole sentence. Now we can go on with relative pronouns. Simple nominative case relative pronouns are der, die, and das. These pronouns very often used in declined forms, like in accusative, genitive, or dative forms. And they convert to dem, den, or deren, according to the grammatical case of the word. Let's look at a very simple relative clause, which is in nominative case. Maria, die eine blaue Brille trägt, arbeitet in meiner Abteilung. In order to understand the structure of the sentence, at first, please try not to see the red color part, and then our sentence becomes like Maria arbeitet in meiner Abteilung. Because I want to give extra explanation, extra detail about Maria, I add a relative clause right after the Maria. Because Maria is a female word, its article is die. Because of this, I start my relative clause with die. Maria, die eine blaue Brille trägt, means Maria who wears a blue glasses. Relative clauses are subordinate clauses, Nebensatz, sagen wir auf Deutsch. It is their nature, so their verbs are always located at the end. Let's continue with this simple sentence. The house belongs to my uncle. In German, I can say, Das Haus gehört meinem Onkel. Now I want to give extra detail about the house, what kind of house it is. So I need some space in the sentence to add my extra information, which is my relative clause. I need an extra place, extra space right after the house. There I will put my clause. So I want to say the house standing over there belongs to my uncle. In order to say that in German, I take first of all the article of house, which is das. Now, the first das in red color is my relative pronoun starting my relative clause. Because of the rule, the verbs and clauses goes to end. Here, as you see, stehen, steht, is located at the end of the red color part. Das Haus, das dort drüben steht, gehört meinem Onkel. Let's see another example. He is my friend. Ist mein Freund. But I want to say, he is my friend with whom I spend a lot of time. So I will explain the word Freund. The article of Freund is der. Because I want to say with whom, which is a dative example, article der turns into dem. With whom in German is mit dem. And now my sentence becomes ist mein Freund, mit dem ich viel Zeit verbringe. You have already seen relative clauses can be in nominative case, accusative case, dative or genitive case. Let's see another example in accusative case. Martin, den ich seit meiner Kindheit kenne, ist sehr schlau. Because Martin is a male, his article is der Martin. My verb kennen. Kennen is used in accusative. This is the reason I convert the article of Martin into den. So, Martin, den ich seit meiner Kindheit kenne, ist sehr schlau. Let's see an example in dative. Das sind die Kollegen, mit denen ich zusammengearbeitet habe. These are the colleagues with whom I have worked together. Die Kollegen is a plural form of colleague. Together with them, I want to say, I must say mit denen as relative pronoun. And das sind die Kollegen, mit denen ich zusammengearbeitet habe, means these are the colleagues with whom I have worked together. And now look at an example in genitive. Petra, deren Figur sehr sportlich ist, kann toll tanzen. Okay, at first we have a Petra. Petra kann toll tanzen. She dances great. I want to give an extra information about Petra. Petra, whose figure is very sporty. Deren means whose. The figure of Petra. Petra, deren Figur sehr sportlich ist, kann toll tanzen. Relative pronouns, they are die, das, generally and widely used and preferred in everyday speech. But sometimes the relative pronoun must be used 2 times. I will give you an example. Look at this. Das sind die Briefträger. Briefträger means postman. Das sind die Briefträger, die die Post zustellen. Zustellen means deliver. As you see, two different D came next to each other. The first D in color is my relative pronoun, which explains Briefträger. But the second D is just the article of the post. In order to avoid this ambiguity, we use welche, welcher oder welches instead of der, die, das when two articles repeating at the same time. Das sind die Briefträger, welche die Post zustellen. And now a few words about relative adverbs. As I said earlier, the difference between relative pronoun and relative adverb is relative adverbs refer to a whole sentence, not only a noun. And they don't change their form. They just stay as they are. Let's look at this example. Spricht 5 Fremdsprachen, was mich sehr beeindruckt. He speaks 5 foreign languages, which impresses me a lot. The red color was refers to not only the noun Fremdsprachen, but the entire sentence. Spricht 5 Fremdsprachen. Let's see another examples. Ich warte dort, wo wir uns immer treffen. The red color wo indicates and refers to the entire sentence at the beginning. Ich warte dort, wo wir uns immer treffen. Another example. Hans unterstützte mich, wofür ich ihm sehr dankbar bin. Hans supported me, for that I'm very grateful to him. Wofür refers to the entire clause at the beginning, that Hans supported me. Hans unterstützte mich. Because of that, I am grateful to him. I think this is enough for this lecture. Please go on with the lecture number 4. There we will try to explain some engineering-related concepts and terms, both in English and in German. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank. In this lecture, we will learn some vocabulary and word formation rules related to the job definition of an engineer. Let's get started. We start with a very simple question in German. Welche Aufgaben hat ein Ingenieur? In this simple German sentence, we have the word Aufgabe. It means task, duty, assignment. As you see, when I introduce you a new word in German, I always give its plural form as well. Die Aufgabe and the plural, die Aufgaben. I recommend you to do so as well. Whenever you learn a new word in German, please also learn its article and its plural form. Ein Ingenieur oder er muss effektive Lösungen für technische Fragestellungen schaffen und Technologien entwickeln. Let's try to analyze this sentence word by word. As you see, one of the most significant words in this sentence is die Lösung. And the plural form, die Lösungen. Okay, die Lösung means solution, answer, or remedy. And it comes from the root word lösen, which means to solve. When you speak German, you can say Lösungen für Probleme finden or Lösungen für Probleme schaffen or entwickeln. Let's look at the other words. Schaffen. Please pay attention that schaffen is a Very important and a little bit complicated verb. Why complicated? Because it has two different conjugations and respectively two different meanings. If you conjugate it schaffen, schuf, hat geschaffen, then it means to create, to make. If you conjugate, however, like schaffen, schaffte, hat geschafft, then it means to accomplish, to manage, or to achieve. Let's look at this German sentence. Ich habe den Fehler gemacht, beim Studienabschluss zu glauben, es geschafft zu haben, und der Rest käme von selbst. As you already see, in this German sentence, there are some new grammar structures which we haven't learned yet. For instance, here I see two Infinitivsatz samples, zu glauben and geschafft zu haben, and I see another käme, which is actually Konjunktiv 2. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you understand Infinitivsatz and Konjunktiv 2. Here, for the moment, the important thing is you have to memorize or you have to learn that schaffen can be conjugated in two different ways and it has two different meanings. Another word from our sample sentence at the beginning, die Fragestellung, which means problem, question, or issue. Entwickeln. This is also a very important and highly frequently used word, which means to develop, to generate, or to design, depending on the context. Let's look at this sample sentence. Entwickelt die Softwarelösungen, die uns so besonders machen. As you see in this German sentence, the second die I highlighted in red color is a relative pronoun. The second part of the sentence after the comma, starting with red color die, a relative clause, which explains the verb Lösungen, Softwarelösungen. Now we will try something new, relatively new. Imagine you are looking a dictionary from German to German. Okay, das Rätsel means puzzle, mystery, riddle, or conundrum. If I would explain this word in German, I would say, das Rätsel bedeutet Denksportaufgabe, deren Lösung mit Hilfe der Kombinationsgabe und Beobachtungsgabe gefunden werden soll. It doesn't matter if you understand all the words in this German sentence. This is just to make your ear familiar with German explanations. Let's continue. Another related word. It's adjective form actually. Rätselhaft means puzzling, baffling, mysterious, or enigmatic. If I would explain this word rätselhaft in German, or if I would try to find German synonyms for rätselhaft, I would say unerklärlich, unverständlich oder geheimnisvoll. Let's look at this sample sentence. An der Oberfläche ein einfacher Gedanke, in der Tiefe eine rätselhafte Frage. On the surface, on the superficial level, it is a simple thought, but if you go into depth, and go deep, it is a mysterious, puzzling question. This is the meaning of our sample sentence. Another word highly related with das Rätsel und rätselhaft. Raten means guess or advise. The verb raten has two meanings. Let's see how we use it in different contexts. If I say Wenn ich raten sollte, this means if I were to guess. If I say, sie rät ihm zur Vorsicht, this means she advises him to be careful. Another word very useful, der Scharfsinn, means acumen, brilliancy, or ingenuity. Its German synonyms are Intelligenz, Klugheit, scharfer Verstand. Let's look at this sample sentence. Mit seinem Scharfsinn hat einen guten Eindruck hinterlassen. With his intelligence, he has left a good impression. Another small group of related words we can use with the job definition and the qualities of an engineer. Effektiv, wirksam, wirkungsvoll. Komplex means vielschichtig, zusammenhängend, kompliziert. Here, if you look at the word complex, you see vielschichtig. Schicht means layer. Vielschichtig, multi-layered. Zusammenhängend, interrelated, interconnected. Kreativ, einfallsreich, fantasievoll, ideenreich. Einfallsreich, if somebody finds good ideas, good solutions very often, we can call him einfallsreich. Fantasievoll is obvious. Ideenreich is rich with ideas. Die Innovation. How can you explain this word in German? Geplante und kontrollierte Veränderung, Neuerung in einem System durch Anwendung neuer Ideen und Techniken. Let's look at this sample sentence. Innovationen haben gerade in Deutschland einen hohen Stellenwert. Keine Innovation ohne Forschung. Probably the word which you may not know in this sentence is der Stellenwert. Stellenwert means significance. Another interesting word, a little bit complicated looking, but it's not actually, das Verantwortungsbewusstsein, which means sense of responsibility. Let's learn its German equivalent, German explanation at first. Fähigkeit, Verantwortung zu übernehmen und zu tragen. Fähigkeit means ability. The ability to take on the responsibility and carry it on. Let's look at this sample sentence where we have used the word Verantwortungsbewusstsein. Ingenieure für Energietechnik brauchen eine sorgfältige Arbeitsweise, Verantwortungsbewusstsein und ein ausgeprägtes technisches Verständnis. I think this is enough for this lecture. Please continue with the lecture number 1 in the second section. There we will talk about the soft skills of an engineer. Or if you say it in German, welche soft skills muss ein Ingenieur neben dem Fachwissen mitbringen? Thank you very much. Vielen Dank. As its name suggests, this course addresses a specific target group. It is designed for engineering students and engineers who are interested in study or work opportunities in German-spoken countries. My name is Melih. I'm a German teacher and ex-engineer, now living in Istanbul, Turkey. Actually, 25 years ago, I graduated from Computer Engineering Department of Istanbul Technical University, but somehow I ended up being a German teacher. Yes, I used to be an engineer, and now I'm a German teacher. Before I explaining you more about the course, probably the most important thing I should mention is the language level required for this course. Students of this course should have completed a minimum A2 level in German, or ideally, more preferably, some experience in B1 or B2 levels. The basic methodology of this course based on the grammatical and structural analysis of sample sentences carefully selected from relevant texts from engineering fields. In order to give you a better idea of our methodology, which is learning by analyzing sample sentences with a grammatical and structural approach, I think the best thing I can do is to give an example. For instance, let's look at this German sentence. Ingenieure sind wissenschaftlich ausgebildete Fachleute, die auf technischem Gebiet arbeiten. You can roughly translate this sentence like engineers are scientifically trained professionals who work in technical field. But if you look at this German sentence in a careful way, you will see three different grammatical topics. For instance, the word wissenschaftlich, which means scientific or scientifically, is a good example of suffixes to make adjectives from nouns. Again, in our sample sentence, you will see a word ausgebildet, which means trained, educated. This is also a good example of a past participle. Past participles are adjectives derived from verbs. Again, if you look at our sample sentence, die Fachleute, die auf technischem Gebiet arbeiten, this is a relative clause, or in German, Relativsatz. The second part of the sentence, which starts with die, is a clause explaining the characteristic of Fachleute, professionals. I think I've managed to give you a clear idea of the methodology and the content of this course. Jetzt, ich wünsche Ihnen viel Spaß beim Deutsch lernen. Vielen Dank.